All right, the record reflects we are back in session. Parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury and our alternates are present. So during the break, we had some people from facilities who are in charge of all the electronics and lighting come down. And apparently there's a problem throughout the building, including all of the courtrooms, that we cannot control the lights. I said, well, can we just turn them off? No, we can't even do that. So, so much for our great new building. But at any rate, apparently that's something we're going to have to suffer through for a little while. Once again, the screen towards the back there that's now turned to face you is probably going to be a little bit sharper and clearer than the projection screen at the front. So I apologize for that inconvenience. And with that, Mr. Moline, you may continue your examination.
Thank you. I want to go back to Exhibit 1033, which is the 2009 ledger that we were talking about prior to our lunch break. And we had gone through what the various columns mean and so forth. Was this a complete ledger the way you saw it in your opinion?
Objection Vegas to complete.
Overruled, you can answer.
No, this ledger is not complete. The top 3/4 of the first page of this that's up on the screen shows none of the payments. So that hasn't been filled in yet. And so I would say it's not complete until that's filled in.
Okay. And what about now?
I'm going to object and actually move to strike. That assumes facts, not evidence, that there were payments. Move to strike his answer.
The last answer is stricken, the jury's instructed disregarded.
Is there a new column on this one that we didn't see in 2007 and 2008 at the top where it says Metro/DIMIC?
Yes, that's an additional column.
Was it your understanding through the review of the records that the business, Joseph's business, changed in the way it operated?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you notice that in 2009 they began, or Joseph began to issue checks to Metro Sheet Metal?
Yes.
Now, what was your understanding, based on a review of the checks and the records, what Metro Sheet Metal did?
My understanding is that Metro Sheet Metal is a fabricator who makes the, for lack of a better term, the guts of the fountains.
And how did that change, if it did, the accounting of Joseph's, our EIP?
So the difference.
Speculation.
I'm sorry, what's the objection?
Speculation.
Overruled, the objection was how, if at all, the accounting with regard to Metro Sheet Metal change. So the objection's overruled at the answer.
So the distinction between these, in fact, where that line is drawn, the change, is
if you don't mind, if we could just show the jury, so that I know it's still very difficult to see, but maybe with you and the other monitors, we can maybe get a good view.
So we're talking about here, October the 2nd is the date, and this line that's the $3,100 and then across. And this column is the Metro DIMIC column that we're talking about. And these checks are now being made directly from Joseph to Metro Sheet Metal. And in the past, there won't be any fill-in here because those payments came from Chase's portion of the proceeds.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained at this time, lack of foundation.
And I move to strike
And
the last answer.
is stricken.
Well, based on your review of the records, did the issuance of Metro Sheet Metal checks take away the issuance of checks to and amounts to Chase?
The amounts issued to Chase changed because these payments were made for materials and fabrication directly from Joseph. In the past, they had been made from Chase's share.
Okay. So the formula, and we had a bunch of payments in 2007 and 2008. Was there a percentage that you could gather from the review of those exhibits, the 2007, 2008 exhibits, ledgers? What percentage Chase was getting on each one of those job orders?
So starting with the first date that we had on the ledger, which was January 23 of 07.
You mean 7? Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So January 23 of 07 through this October 2nd date. I can't point to all of those because they're not on this one.
October 2nd of what year?
October 2nd here. Oh, here we go. So January of 07 through to that date. So the effective date followed 8/25.
Okay, hold on.
Still 07.
No, of the 09.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
So there was a change made here between 8/25/09 and 10/2/09. There's no jobs recorded between that. And the date, what changed was the percentage of revenue that was credited to Chase from Joseph. From January of 07 through that October timeframe, the standard was 65% of the revenue per job was to be Chase's. And that money then went to pay Chase for his efforts, and then he was to buy materials and fabrication and so on. And so those payments...
Reject that, that's based on hearsay and lacks foundation, that last response.
It's also speculative.
Overruled.
So we ran those as a percent of that. Off of these ledgers, Chase's percentage, his dollars, and then took as a percentage of revenue. And the average during that time frame is 64%.
So
Yeah.
hold on, so just to be clear, from January of 2007 to September, October 2009, the percentage that went to Chase of those jobs was approximately 65%.
Approximately.
Okay.
That appears to have been the target, but it was there were numbers that differed from that for a variety of reasons.
Okay. And then so let's say October 2nd. So if we go to October 2nd, 2009, we can actually do it on this exhibit. Maybe we could blow that portion up if possible. That blow it up so that October 9th. October 2nd, 2009. So you can illustrate the changeover to the jury.
So here on October the 2nd, the job was $3,100, and Chase's portion of that job was listed as $504, which rounds to 16%. The amounts vary during this time, but it would appear that the target is about 15%.
And just above that, August 25th, there's a job called Shelley Chang, is that correct?
You're asking about
October 25th.
this line.
Yes.
That's correct. A job 7770 revenue, and Chase's portion is 5050.
So that appears to be the last job where Chase got an allocation of 65%. Is that correct?
No, but it's the end of that era, and there is a job on January 11, 2009, which is on this schedule.
Okay. Where that went to 63.
To end glass, and this $6,000 that's designated Chase's portion is 63% of 9450. That appears to be an outlier. I don't know why that one is different, but the ones all around it are in that 15 to 20% range.
So when that changeover occurs, you mentioned that October 2009 order on October 2nd, is that about the time that we see checks being issued to Metro Sheet Metal?
That is, yes,
In fact, the first payment, first check that you saw, or that you saw to Metro Sheet Metal, do you recall when that, approximately that was?
well, on this schedule, this $1,511 is the first check made to Metro Dimick, and that's the title on that column. That's not the first check that Joseph has ever written to Metro Sheet Metal, but it's clear from the ledgers that this is a change in the way that they're being considered.
Okay. And you said earlier that's because Metro would then be doing whatever, the fabrication,
Projection,
is that correct?
speculation.
Or Joseph was now paying a fabricator, Metro Sheet Metal, at that point, correct?
Correct.
Now, is there a, okay, I was gonna say that if you had prepared a schedule that kind of outlined that, and we have that marked as Exhibit 1125, and I don't think we have it digitally, so I'm gonna just show it to you. See if this is the schedule that you prepared.
It is.
Okay. So, I'm gonna use the overhead.
When was this done?
You have it?
I didn't receive.
Check your email. Check your email.
So you got it.
We're not gonna wait for council to check, so let me just ask you if you did prepare a schedule that outlines those percentages.
I did.
Okay, and then it goes, just to recap, it goes from 65% for, let's say, a year and a half, and then it changes over to that 15% generally, is that correct?
Generally, it's more like 2.5 and a 2.5 and a half.
Okay. So, the numbers that you found on the 2009 tables, which is Exhibit 1033, we're going to go back to the to our exhibit and go to page 2 of that exhibit, okay? And you had mentioned last time when we looked at 2008 that Joseph made some notations on the second page of the 2008 ledger. Do you recall that? Where
Yes.
he mentioned the Perpetuo disaster on the
Yes.
2008, we went through that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is 2009 on the second page, does Joseph go into more detail based on what you saw in this ledger? As to the numbers on the second page?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by more detail.
Okay, do you see page 2?
Yes.
Okay, if we could go to page 2 on the, and then go down to the bottom right. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so, does he add more figures there to the amounts surrounding the Perpetuo and Levine transactions?
So, you're asking about this.
Correct.
We repeat these numbers from the prior year in a different way.
Doesn't Joseph now have some grand total which is added to the 173,000?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you could just explain that to the jury, please? And maybe we could blow that portion up so they can see.
So this 169,755 comes from another part of this schedule, and that's the if you went all the way to the left, you'd see a long list of items. And those all foot to $169,755. He then adds 3 jobs, which there are very little explanation, just a name for, and adds $1,000, $1,000, and $1,500, total of $3,500, to get to his total of $173,255.
Now, does that 173,255, and I'm just going to use the overhead momentarily, correspond to a number on the email that we saw for February 1st? And I'm going to put up Exhibit 419 for the jury. This is not very good, of course, but if we blow it up, maybe we can. Well, I can't blow it up, can I?
So
I can?
Zoom in there.
Zoom. Okay, zoom. Oh, there's zoom.
Push the button.
Okay. There we go. I don't know. Well, maybe you can, again, kind of.
So this is the 173,255 that we just referred to,
That Joseph put in the email, is that correct?
and that this is in the email, and it refers back to that box on the ledger from 2009.
Okay, so now we'll just cut back to our attorney 4. So then below that 173,255, which represented the amount that Chase was paid, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then going down further on this exhibit, which is 1033, we then see the infamous Provecho disaster line, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then beneath that is the Levine disaster as well?
Correct.
Okay, and then there's a figure, a grand total, it says 207,255.
Correct.
Okay, and then it says total paid underneath that of 173,255. Chase owed 158,210, and then it says overpaid 15,045. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those are the same numbers that we have, at least those 3 numbers, total paid, total owed to Chase, and the overpaid amount. That's the same that was in the email. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about this. There's conflicting amounts here where it says above Provecho disaster and next to it 34,000 on this ledger, and then right below it says at the bottom plus Levine and Provecho. Now the amount is 19,000. Do you know what that means?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you are.
Okay, I'm on Exhibit 1033, which is the 2009 ledger.
Okay.
Okay, it should be up on the screen in front of you as well.
We're missing a.
Maybe we need to scroll up a little. Oh no, it's there at the.
Yeah. There.
Oh, it's on 2 different pages.
It's on
yeah.
2 different
Okay.
So yes, that is the same. That 19,000 is what's reflected on the email.
Do you mean the 15,000?
I understood.
Oh, you're talking about the Provecho or the totals now? If we could just go through it so we're clear.
I understood your
Okay.
question to be about the $19,000.
Okay. Right, and that differs from the Provecho disaster of 34,000 mentioned above.
It does differ.
Do you know what the adjustment is, or do you have an opinion as to what that adjustment meant?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained, also sustained is vague.
Okay. It's Provecho's mentioned twice. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there an accounting reason why it's mentioned twice?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. The amount of 42,845 is still the amount that we see on the email, correct?
That's correct.
And you testified earlier that that's not an actual amount that is owed to Joseph from Chase, correct?
Correct.
Now, what do you base your opinion on, or does anything in this ledger shed light on that issue?
So it's difficult because those are on different lines, but the 42,845 includes the 8,800 for Levine and 19,000 for Provecho.
Okay,
As I stated earlier, I have not seen any claim for that or a demand payment. And just the difference in the two numbers here suggests that that's not been settled yet.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
okay. Now, you had mentioned about that at any given time, if we stop this running ledger, it can show Chase owes money or Chase is owed money. This 2009 ledger stops at the end of 2009, correct?
So there's two parts to this ledger, and the top of this, if we could scroll to the top, where the jobs are listed. Perhaps enlarge that so we can look at this bottom. So as far as the jobs and revenue are concerned, the last job listed is 12/22/2009. If you scroll down just a touch so I can see it, this is the 158,210 that is also on the email. Okay, and so that shows the Chase owed amount.
Okay.
Coming directly from there. Now, if we now go to the bottom, because you asked what time frame this ledger is through. This top part of the ledger is through 12/22/2009. If we go to the bottom of the third or fourth page, I guess it's the fourth page. Need to keep going one more. There. You'll see that this date is 1/28/2010. And that's what adds up to the 169,755, which is a starting number that we made some adjustments to just a bit ago. So the end date on this ledger is different for the revenue side than it is for the expense side.
So on that last page where you pointed out 169,755, would that fall under the money owed to Chase column if we were to go forward?
That 169, this 169 is a kind of a foundation number for what Chase has been paid.
Okay.
You'll remember we made a $3,500 addition to that to get to the 173,255.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I don't see the 26,000 that you referenced earlier, which was the Paul Mitchell and the Saudi Arabia jobs. That would have, and according to Joseph's email, those two totaled 26,000. I didn't see that mentioned on this ledger.
They are not on this ledger.
Do you know why that would be?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Do you have an opinion as to why that 26,000 is not listed on this ledger?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Let me ask you, if jobs are, let's say, booked for 2010, would they be listed on a 2009 ledger?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained as to this particular instance with regard
Sure.
to Mr. McStay's business.
I'll ask another question. Are there any 2010 jobs listed on the 2009 ledger?
There are payments made in 2010.
Correct. That's not my question.
But-
My question is there any jobs listed in this 2009 ledger for 2010 jobs?
You know, as we stated just a minute ago, that list ends December 22nd, 2009 with the Bismarck job.
Okay. Is that one reason why that the Paul Mitchell and Saudi Arabia jobs are not listed on the 2009 ledger?
Objection assumes facts not evidence, lacks foundation.
Sustained as lacks foundation.
do you have did you prepare a chart that illustrates the amounts of money that are owed to Chase and owed to Joseph at any given time, along the span of the three ledgers that we've seen from 2007 to 2009?
I did.
Okay, and that's exhibit 1124?
Yes.
Yeah, this one.
No, I know,
You know,
no,
did you check your email?
I did.
So, if you could take a look at, if you could just take a look at your exhibit. I'm not gonna publish it to the jury because they don't have a copy right now, but at any given time, let's say if we were to take a snapshot of, and you did the accounting on this, let's take January 21st, 2009. What was the state?
I'm gonna object to any testimony about this, Your Honor, given that I don't have a copy of this exhibit.
Also Sanchez Foundation.
Sustained at this point on the discovery issue. You wanna
Your Honor, if we
take
could
a
be
brief-
heard, we could be heard on this.
You want to take a brief recess
Sure.
and provide the copies?
Sure.
Sure, we'll take, I guess, an early afternoon recess, and council can provide copies of the various items that are being referred to for the prosecution. Keep in mind the admonition is not to form or express any opinions, not to discuss the case concealed in that, hopefully in about 10 to 15 minutes.